At 2:13 a.m., someone knocked on my car window. The problem was, I was parked in a turnout on a dead-end mountain road, 20 miles from the nearest town. And through the frost on the glass, I could see they weren't wearing a coat. It was just a single knuckle-on glass crack, high and sharp. I was huddled in the back seat of my 2014 Civic, buried under 3 blankets, trying to survive a night where the temperature had dipped into the low teens. When that sound hit, I didn't breathe. I didn't even blink. I just stared at the grayish blur of a face pressed against the side window. It wasn't moving. It was just leaning, waiting for me to acknowledge that I wasn't alone in the middle of the wilderness. My name is Elias. I'm a guy who usually plays it safe, but back in November, I decided I needed a break from the city. I'm a freelance editor, and the screen glare was starting to rot my brain. I figured a solo road trip through the Cascades would be the reset I needed. Just me, a stack of books, and my car. I didn't want to deal with hotels or crowded campsites, so I rigged my back seat into a makeshift bed. It was supposed to be a 3-day loop. The first day was perfect. The air was crisp, the trees were a deep, heavy green, and the silence was exactly what I'd paid for in gas money. But by day 2, the weather turned. A sudden cold front came screaming down from the north, bringing a biting wind that made the pines hiss. I was on a Forest Service road, looking for a specific trailhead I'd seen on an old map when the fog rolled in. It wasn't just mist, it was a wall of wet, white wool. I couldn't see 5 feet in front of my hood. I did the smart thing. I pulled over into a wide gravel turnout, tucked against a steep rock face, and decided to wait it out. I figured I'd sleep, the fog would lift by morning, and I'd head back to the main highway. I climbed into the back, bundled up, and fell into a heavy, cold sleep. That was until the knock. I stayed frozen for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 seconds. The figure didn't knock again. It just stayed there. Slowly, I reached for my phone, which was sitting on the floor mat. I pressed the side button just enough to light the screen. The light hit the window. The person outside was a man. He looked to be in his 60s, with a thin, weathered face and eyes that looked like they'd been bleached by the sun. He wasn't wearing a jacket, just a thin, checkered flannel shirt that was missing half its buttons. His skin was a pale, sickly blue. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at my keys, which were still dangling from the ignition. "Can I help you?" I managed to croak out. My voice was paper thin. He didn't speak. He just lifted a hand that was missing the pinky and ring finger, and pointed down the road, back the way I'd come. Then he mouthed a single word: "Run." Before I could ask why, he backed away into the fog. He didn't turn and walk. He just drifted backward, his eyes fixed on my car, until the white mist swallowed him whole. I scrambled into the driver's seat. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the keys twice before I finally got them into the ignition. I didn't care about the fog anymore. I didn't care about the sheer drops on the side of the road. I just needed to be moving. I slammed the car into drive and punched the lights. The high beams hit the fog and bounced back, blinding me. I dropped them to low and started crawling forward. I'd only gone about half a mile when I saw the first one. It was a shoe, a single muddy hiking boot, sitting right in the middle of the road. I swerved to miss it, my heart hammering. Then 50 yards later, another shoe. Then a backpack, ripped open, its contents scattered across the gravel. It looked like someone had emptied a suitcase in a panic. Then I saw the lights. In my rearview mirror, 2 pinpricks of blue light appeared in the fog. They were moving fast, much faster than a car should be able to move on these curves. I pushed the Civic harder, the tires skidding on the loose rock. The blue lights were gaining. They weren't headlights. They were too small, too high up. They looked like high-powered flashlights being held by someone running. But nobody can run 40 miles an hour uphill. I rounded a sharp bend, and my headlights swept across a figure standing on the edge of the cliff. It was the old man again. He was waving his arms frantically, pointing toward a narrow, hidden logging trail that branched off to the right. I didn't think. I yanked the wheel. The car jolted as it hit the uneven dirt of the trail. I killed my lights, coasting into the darkness under the heavy canopy of trees. I held my breath, watching the main road through the gaps in the branches. The blue lights flew past. There was no engine noise, no sound of tires on gravel, just a faint, high-pitched whistling sound, like a tea kettle going off in the distance. I sat there in the dark for an hour, the heater off, the windows starting to fog from my breath. I was terrified that if I turned the car on, the noise would bring them back. My mind was trying to make sense of it. Park rangers, illegal hunters, some kind of mountain cult. None of it fit. The speed, the silence, the blue lights, it felt wrong. It felt like I'd stumbled into a part of the woods that wasn't meant for people. As the sun began to bleed through the fog, turning the world a dull, bruised purple, I decided to try the logging trail. It seemed to go downward toward the valley. The trail was rough. My car scraped against rocks and low-hanging branches. After about 2 miles, the trees opened up into a small clearing. In the center of the clearing sat a cabin. It wasn't an abandoned, horror movie cabin. It was well-maintained, with a neat wood pile and a porch. And sitting on that porch, in a rocking chair, was the old man. He was wearing a heavy coat now. He was holding a mug of something steaming. He looked at me as I pulled up, but he didn't look surprised. I got out of the car, my legs feeling like jelly. "What is going on out here?" I shouted. "Who are those people?" The old man took a slow sip of his drink. "They aren't people, son," he said. His voice was gravelly but calm. "And they aren't those. It's just it. One thing, moving fast enough to look like many." I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" "The blue," he said. "It's been in these mountains since my grandfather's time. It likes the fog, it likes the cold, and it likes things that move." "I need to get to a highway," I said, ignoring the crazy talk. "Is there a way out of here that doesn't go back to the service road?" The old man shook his head. "The road you came in on is the only way down. But you can't go now. It's still hunting. It knows your scent. It knows the sound of that little engine." "I'm not staying here," I snapped. I felt a surge of frustration. I thought he was just some local nut trying to scare a city kid. I turned back to my car, but as I reached for the door handle, I stopped. On the roof of my car, right above the driver's seat, there were 4 deep, narrow grooves in the metal. They looked like they'd been made by a hot iron. The paint was bubbled and charred. The old man stood up. "It touched your car while you were sleeping, Elias." My heart stopped. "How do you know my name?" He didn't answer. He just pointed to the back seat of my car. Lying on the floor mat next to my phone was a single checkered button, the same kind of button that had been missing from his shirt the night before. I realized then that he hadn't just been standing outside my window. He'd been inside. "I was trying to keep you quiet," the man said. "If you'd woken up while it was smelling the glass, you'd be part of the scatter on the road right now. I took your keys so you wouldn't try to bolt. I put them back when it moved off toward the ridge." "Why help me?" I whispered. "Because I need someone to tell the people in the valley to stop coming up here," he said. He looked tired. "They keep building. They keep hiking. They keep thinking they own the dirt. But the blue, it doesn't like neighbors." He walked over to my car and handed me a small, heavy stone. It was a dull, leaden gray. "Keep this on the dashboard. It smells like the deep earth. It might mask the scent of the gas and the oil." "Go now," he said. "The fog is thinning. Drive fast, don't look in the mirror, and whatever you do, if you see a shoe in the road, do not stop to pick it up." I didn't ask any more questions. I got in, put the stone on the dash, and drove. I went back up the logging trail, back onto the service road. I drove like a demon. I saw the backpack again. I saw the shoes. I even saw a mountain bike twisted into a shape that shouldn't be possible for metal. And then I saw the blue lights. They were in the trees to my left. They were keeping pace with me, jumping from trunk to trunk. The whistling sound started again, louder this time, vibrating through the windows of the car. It sounded like 1,000 birds screaming at once. I didn't look. I kept my eyes locked on the road. I felt the car shudder, as if something heavy had landed on the trunk. The back window cracked, a web of white lines spreading across the glass. I screamed, flopping the car into the highest gear it had, the engine roaring in protest. Suddenly, the whistling stopped. The blue lights vanished. I burst through the fog line and onto the paved state highway. I didn't stop until I reached a gas station with 20 cars and a dozen people milling around. I sat at the pump and sobbed. When I finally got out to check the car, I found the trunk was crumpled, as if a giant hand had squeezed it. and tucked into the crack of the back window was a single human tooth. It was old, yellowed, and it had been filed down to a sharp, needle-like point. I never went back to the mountains. I sold the Civic for scrap. I couldn't stand the sight of those grooves in the roof. I live in the flatlands now. No hills, no heavy forests, no fog. But sometimes, on a very cold night, I'll be sitting in my living room and I'll hear it, a faint, high-pitched whistle coming from the vents. And when I look at my front door, I see the light from the street lamp reflecting off the glass. For a second, just a second, the light looks blue. And I wonder, did I really leave it behind? Or did I just bring the neighbor home with me? I still have that stone. I keep it on my nightstand. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, it feels warm to the touch. And yesterday, I found a checkered button in my hallway. I don't own any flannel shirts. If you're planning a trip to the mountains this weekend, do yourself a favor. Stay in the hotel. Stay on the paved roads. Because the woods are deep, the fog is thick, and some things are faster than you can ever hope to be. And they're very, very hungry for something new to watch.